faces, Lord, they hate to hear your message. Though I'm geared with your protection, your armor that I've been blessed with, no stressing. When I'm trying to teach them all your lessons, they looking at me crazy like I got a weird perspective. Smeared faces, Lord, they hate to hear your message. Though I'm geared with your protection, your armor that I've been blessed with, no stressing. When I'm trying to teach them all your lessons, they looking at me crazy like I got a weird perspective.
All right, Mr. Ray, today we're talking about politics.
I'm out. No.
Politics, the thing that keeps us all divided in this crazy world that we live in. There's so many people that would say, you don't talk about politics, you don't talk about religion. And we talk about religion a lot on this channel.
True.
And now we about to talk about politics. So some people might not like what we gonna say, or the fact that we even just haven't been talking about this at all. But we gotta talk about it. I mean, it's an election year. It's coming up pretty fast, and so the DNC, what is it? DNC, yeah, it's here in Chicago, blocking off roads and causing all type of traffic.
About like 5 minutes from where we work is where the DNC is happening. They already started blocking off.
So we wanted to take the time and the opportunity to talk about politics. I've talked about politics in season 1 with Eddie, who used to work in politics. He worked for an alderman's office, so he had some behind the scenes insight on politics and how some of these meetings work, how some of these decisions get made about local government. But today, we're just gonna talk about politics in general. And so, where do you want to start, my friend? With
Probably
this crazy thing of politics.
I mean, full transparency, like.
Well, but wait, I kick us off. What do you know about politics? Do you follow it? Are you into it? Do you watch the news? Do you
only at a surface level
pay attention to presidential debates and all that?
This is something that I think as it's crazy. Once you start thinking about politics, if you haven't really been thinking about it, you realize how much you don't know. Electoral process, delegates, red states versus blue states, majority, swing votes. I realized how much I didn't know about politics. I was talking with my cousin Timmy, and he's like a political, he's very involved with politics. I think he's even studying it in school. And we were talking about elections, and he was telling me his thoughts on the 2008 election. And then he went on for 15 minutes just really breaking it down. I'm older than Timmy by 15 years. And then he was like, Ray, what do you think? And I said, he just looked at me, and then I paused for 5 seconds. I don't know. I'm not really aware. I just have to look at him and say, I appreciated your knowledge and info. I have no idea what you're talking about. So the first thing I think about with politics really is living intentionally versus living passively. Because anyone who really cares about politics, when they meet somebody who doesn't know a lot about it, will say, well, don't you know about who decides where your children go to school, or who decides the boundary lines of a neighborhood, how potholes get filled. So they could talk about it from a really small level, micro level, who decides who your alderman is, who picks up the trash, who does this, versus the big stuff, who are the Supreme Court judges, who's president, who decides the laws of the land, so on and so forth. And once it's easy to feel overwhelmed, which is why I think it's easy for people to tap out and say, you know what, me and mines are good. I eat 3 square meals a day. My kids are taken care of. I don't really got time to get involved in politics. Half of that, I think, is you just feel overwhelmed and you just should make the effort. I notice I think I should make the effort to be more informed, especially as time goes on. The other half, I think, is you observe how people talk about politics and how people discourse, and you're like, I'm good. I got enough drama in my life. And that's kind of I guess the tension I find myself in is I do have stuff in my life I have to deal with, and it seems like taking on the extra burden of being a politically aware person seems overwhelming versus I'm not cool with living as passively as I do. My wife is a lot more, she would not define herself as a political person, but she's a lot more aware than I am. So and then also we'll bring in the faith aspect, which we're going to break down. But as a Christian, I think, Lord, how aware should I make myself of voting and the laws of the land and what this person's, we can break this down, but Christians, I think, sometimes think a lot about, we've all read the scriptures in the New Testament concerning like attitudes towards government and submissiveness. Then you think about submissiveness versus resistance, submitting to all authorities being instituted by God. And then, of course, I think any Christian kind of worth their salt knows the command, like pray for those in authority. But I think this will be an interesting discussion because it's not about your attitude towards government as a Christian, but it will become about what should your awareness of political policy be? What should your awareness of these things be? Churches offer a lot of classes on finances, on dating, on marriage. Should your local church have like a political class? I heard of some churches teaching like constitution classes and stuff like that. There's a lot of different aspects, but that's kind of where I'm at,
Where I'm at is, I'm not an expert. I really didn't start paying attention to politics until 2020. I did a live stream that offended some people.
Those butt naked live streams.
And I think I was pretty clear on the live stream of why I voted the way I voted. But when I talked to those people who unfriended me or was offended by me, and I asked them, man, did you watch the entire live stream, or can you at least repeat back to me why I voted the way I voted? Yeah. They couldn't give me an answer.
Darry voted for Kanye, by the way.
Kanye for president.
Kanye 2020.
Straight up. I've never followed politics. I don't know if I should even follow politics that deeply. The way I feel about politics is I feel like it's a mess. I feel like we focus more on people. We focus more on the attacks of each side than actual policy. And what, like I almost got into a fight at the barbershop because the guy, I asked him to name. I said, "Who you voting for?" They were already talking about it when I walked in, and then I was chilling. I was just enjoying the back and forth.
It was probably like, Darry, why are you at a barbershop, man?
And then,
no, I'm kidding. Darry's bald. That's a bald joke.
I was taking my sons who have hair. And then I also can get my beard lined up.
I know. That's like, why are you here?
Why would you supposed to be my bald and bearded brother.
I am.
Supposed to be locked in with me.
True.
And you over here talking about me.
That's a joke.
We're gonna have to address that.
That's a joke I hope you would make at my expense if I said that. And I would be proud of you. But go ahead.
You're like, Ray, why you don't wear hats? And I was just playing.
All right. Beneath the camera, I'm making rude gestures you can't see. Continue.
Yeah, nah.
What was it?
What's that bird down there?
That's the. No, I'm gonna stop. The Holy Spirit's like, stop.
Yeah, and so I was just chilling, and then they brought me into the conversation, and dude was making his points, and he was saying who he was gonna vote for and why the other person needs to get out, and then he was like, you know what I'm saying, black man, and I didn't know he was talking to me. And then I looked up, and he was like, yeah, you. He was like, man, you feel what I'm saying? And then I was like, actually, I disagree with some of the things. And then me and him got to talking, and then I asked him to tell me the policies of the person that he was going to vote for. And he couldn't tell me any of the policies. And I was just like, so you can't name any of the policies that this person is going to put into place. why you voting for him? And he was like, we got to get the other person out because he's racist. And I was just like, all right, well, what did he say or do that was racist? And he couldn't give me any answers on that neither. And then just me challenging him, it kind of changed the temperature of the room. And so he was kind of like, oh, so you one of them type dudes? And I was just like, one of what type dudes? And then it just went from there. And he was pretty upset with me. And I hadn't even told him like who I was voting for. And I was just asking him what's his views on policies that I thought he would have known, and he couldn't name any of them. And so I'm like, you out here, you know, going hard for a person that you don't even know what they stand for and what their plans are when they get in office.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of that going on, especially in, unfortunately, black and brown communities where they don't know the policies of either party, but because we voted a certain way for so long, or we're told to vote a certain way for so long, we just fall in line and we don't do the proper research of educating ourselves. And so I was that person. When I was 19, I voted for Obama just because he was black. I said, we got to get a black face on that wall. And so I'm going to vote. And it helps that I live in Illinois, right? Chicago. And unless some crazy happens, Illinois is forever going to be a Democratic state. I don't see it flipping, but I mean, Atlanta flipped from red to blue. So, I mean, it could happen. But either way, we're not a battleground state. So, you know, I have my opinions, which I will share later on, you know, electoral colleges and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what is a battleground state?
Yeah, we'll get into it. I like I said, I'm not an expert. I just know a little bit about certain parts of government and politics, just on research. And so, my decisions are based on my limited knowledge of that. And so I'm just sharing my thoughts and positions. Nobody has to take them. I'm not trying to sway anybody, but we talking about it, so it's gonna come out.
I mean, from an outsider's point of view, sometimes it's like if you are looking to get involved in politics, it's like, where does the histrionics end and like actual info begin? Like, even with this election, it's like, well, I keep hearing one person's existential threat and one person will save you from existential threat. But then I'm like, well, okay, I understand that. But after, let's say, like after the existential threat is dealt with, you are now the most powerful person in the world for 4 years. Like, what do you want to do with the country? Or if like whoever, I think one word that I became aware of like around 2016 was being tribal. And just how like you subscribe so hard to like a doctrine or to like a person's, it's basically, it's like a club. It's like, if you're not a part of this club, if you're black, you vote this way.
Yeah.
If you're Christian, you vote this way. If you're gay, if you're straight, if you're male or female, like a lot of people would have assumed like, yeah, you voted for Barack Obama because you're black. And I dislike being put in boxes just in general. So I kind of bristle against that. And once again, as an outsider, if you're looking to get into politics, I don't see how that makes it appetizing. Oh, you're just looking for a way to just kind of put me into a box, versus I looked at the two people who were running and then I picked who I thought was the best.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and so I mean, this is my story a little bit. Going back to, like I said, I voted for Obama just because he was black. I was 19 years old, my first time being able to vote. So I was kind of amped. He was from Chicago, or at least he lived in Chicago. And so I was like, man, yeah, let's get him in there. I had no idea about anything politics. So that was my decision to vote. I didn't vote the following election. I didn't care. In 2016, I didn't vote. I didn't care. In 2020, I voted, and like I said, lost some friends. People were offended. People called me names, which I got thick skin, so I didn't care about the insults. I just want to have a conversation. And then in this election, I'm not gonna vote. I'll probably never vote again in my life. Can't say that as a matter of fact, but my thought process behind voting has changed because of the positions that I'm in life, and I live by this code of staying balanced. You can still vote and stay balanced, right? But for me, I'm choosing not to vote, at least in presidential elections. Certain local elections, I might vote in, but I don't want people to think that how I feel politically is influencing anything that I say while I'm preaching. I don't want people to get any of those things twisted. And so, he said this because he leans this way politically, or he said that because he leans this way, or any of those things, right? I'm not registered under anything. I am a independent. And so, yeah, I vote based on what I feel is important. But like I said, just the more things I learned about voting. Another controversial statement is that they tell us to vote so much, but your vote doesn't have that much weight to it. Because of electoral colleges and, like I was saying, battleground states. You have a popular vote. People win the popular vote, but then they lose because of the election. Electoral vote. So there's a lot of different things that goes into who wins what. And so, like I said, man, the place where I live right now is Illinois, Chicago. And I think I heard somebody say, man, we're blue, true and true, or something crazy. So that's what it is. And so there's no point in me voting for that reason. And then for the other one that I just said, which is I don't want people to get anything that I say as a pastor to get it twisted or think that I'm saying that because of some type of political affiliation I may have, right? There are certain things that I like on the liberal side. There are certain things I like on the conservative side, right? I think Democrats are off, and then I don't trust Republicans. So, I have issues with both sides. And then I try to balance these things out biblically and what the Bible says. And so there's no verses that tell us to vote. It's not a command to vote. It's a command to love my neighbor, though, right? And so as you see all these things taking place, politics are wild. And so I don't get into it. I don't get into back and forths. I heard this one great man say this. He said, vote your conscience, but don't lose your conscience for a vote. And that just when he said that, it just hit me. And so I've been just kind of living by that, right? And so, and that goes to anybody who's listening, who's watching. What that means is you might feel a certain type of way in your current situation or where you are in life, and you're like, man, I feel like I should vote for this person, or I really don't like this person's character, and I feel like this person is divisive and that he's not good to be a leader for this country, and therefore I don't want to vote for him. And so you and your conscience, right? Don't vote for that guy. If you feel that strongly about it, don't vote for that guy. And also, like the Lord, he puts kings in place, and then he also removes them. And so the Lord, at the end of the day, whether I vote or not, he's still on the throne ruling, and he's sovereign. So he picks and chooses who he wants, not Darry. And so I can vote looking at what their policies are, which I think more people need to pay attention to policies. Kamala and Trump are just going back and forth about what race she is. Did she smoke weed or not in college? And then Trump, he's a sexist. He's what's the word? Narcissistic. All these things, but I ain't hear nobody talk about no policies on what they gonna do to help the country get better, right? And so for me right now in my situation, all this other stuff, we could talk about abortion, right? We could talk about LGBTQ rights. We could talk about those things, right? That's what all the Christians kind of bank their vote on. But I need to talk about this money.
Yeah.
Like, I got 5 kids. You know what I'm saying? Eggs is almost another bill. You know what I'm saying? So for me and for my house and my situation, I'm looking at those things, right? Price of groceries, gas, the things that I deal with on a day-to-day basis. What's the plan? So who got the best plan, right? Whether it's Democrat or Republican, who got it? And that's who let's work through that. And let's see, you know, where we gonna end up. But I don't hear anybody talking about the plan. And so I'm pretty sure they got one. There's probably a video of somebody talking about it somewhat, but that's where politics are, and that's why I'm like, I just don't waste my time with it.
I think like one, originally me and Darry we may do a part 2 of this where we just interview a Christian who is more politically minded, who maybe like works for like who just works in that sphere, because like just practical questions we have about politics. I think just as believers, maybe we could just speak to some of the things that I often hear Christians say, whether you know a lot about politics or you know a little. A lot of times it comes down to, one, should I vote? Who should I vote for? I can't vote for this person. Well, this person has some of what I like, some of what I don't like, and same with the other person. Does God care who I vote for? Am I going against God if I vote for this person? So there are questions like that. Me personally, I probably I do vote. I think to the effect it has, I want to exercise it. I'm not saying it's like a cure-all. I mean, I think voting is like I think voting is like 10% of like your responsibility, and the other 90% is then like holding a politician like accountable for what you voted for them for. I think, one, to the question of who should Christians vote for, do you think there's ever a clear-cut candidate that Christians should vote for, or is if the person's flawed, like, does it really matter?
No, I mean, everybody's flawed in a way.
Yeah.
Right? But what I think people, especially Christians, have gotten away from is character. And I see so many people just like going hard for Trump as if he's like God's man. But I've even heard people say that, and it's like, this dude, number one, I haven't heard him truly like profess Christ.
Yeah.
I've seen him do videos of say, "Hey, I brought my Bible," and they ask him questions. Man, what's your favorite Bible verse? Man, I love it all.
He'll hold the Bible upside
down. Yeah, and so, and then when you hear him talk, how he bashes people, it's just like, fam, he got a lot of character flaws. And I personally think that if he gets back in office, I think there might be some good that comes from it, but I think he's gonna be on a revenge tour. Yeah, it's just my opinion. Just all the people who he felt did him wrong, I think he's going after them. But
is there that's something I want to kind of touch on. Christians serving up under corrupt people, because that's the interesting thing with Donald Trump, is that Christians who vote for them, who see him as like God's guy, yeah, I got some issues with that. I think your character should evince some of that you're God's guy. You're God is the apple of your eye. You're a friend of God. At the same time, don't think God could like accomplish things through Trump's, is that rain? I think it is raining. I think God could accomplish some things through a corrupt presidency.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then yeah.
We read the book of Daniel.
You read the book of Daniel, read the book of Esther. Like, that was King Xerxes. You read I was listening to like the book of First Kings this morning. Saul, who was King Saul. Yeah, who tried to pin David to the wall, who had a lot of issues. Nebuchadnezzar. So I mean, there will always be like politicians who are jacked up.
And then also look at this, right? Really quick, not to cut you off. Daniel was the second. He was in second in command, and they still put a policy in place that went against his belief.
Yeah.
Right? But he still lived his life according to his belief in God. Right? And then they used that to, throw him into the lion's den and all that stuff. But I say that because people can be used by God. He's in control. He picks. But I think a lot of times, like Christians, we're fighting against each other for this unrighteous person according to God's will. Like, this person isn't a believer. Person isn't, a Christian living for God, and we're fighting for what sinful master we want to rule us. That's ultimately what it looks like and what it is.
It's the same thing with Kamala as well, because people are like so you hear some Christians say, I could never vote for Kamala. God could. To me, sometimes that's when I get to the whole. I could kind of feel like it doesn't matter who gets in the office, because God will accomplish what He wants to accomplish through whoever gets in the office. So no matter what people can say whatever they want to say on the outside. You can say whatever you want to say to get votes. I mean, people call Trump out for it, but I think that's like any politician. Like, Trump flip-flopped to be Christian, but you have you have politicians who do that. You say what people want to hear, and then once you get in office, you look
at this, right? You had Joe Biden, who grew up conservative, right? He grew up, I believe, Christian, Catholic, probably more Catholic. He grew up, so he had Catholics are considered conservative.
Yeah. So
he grew up with conservative beliefs. His family, the way he's brought up, he even still talked about going to church, stuff like that. And then look at some of the policies that Christians would be offended by, or say that God is offended by, that he put in place, right? You had Trump, who was he publicly said he voted Democrat all this time up until he ran to become president. And then why did he become a conservative? Because he said Christians, they'll vote for him.
He knew how to weaponize.
He knew how to
conservative,
right?
values.
And so you look at his history of what he did and how he voted in the past, and then even now, he's flip flopping on his take on abortion.
Yeah,
he said he was gonna
jail women who got abortions.
But yeah, now he's like, I'm leaving it up to the states. They can decide. It's not a, it's not a thing that he's going to deal with. And here's a question, and I'm probably gonna do some research on this. How many abortions took place under, let's say, Obama and Joe Biden? Then let's just say who was before Obama? Bush and Trump. Did they change people? Did anything change as far as abortions?
Probably not.
Probably not. I would want to see the numbers. How does the president affect people getting abortion? And then even if it's forced upon them, does God want is that the will of the Lord? Right? Because we could put the 10 Commandments in the school. Yeah. Right? I think they did that. And was it Arkansas? They said every school is going to have the 10 Commandments in there. That's great. I love that, 10 Commandments, we have the freedoms to put these things in buildings and institutions. That's great. But does that change the heart for God?
Yeah.
Because I could see these 10 Commandments all day, but I still don't want nothing to do with Jesus. So how does it change the heart?
Personally, I'd rather see John 3:16. If you're gonna put anything in school.
Yeah. And so I'm not saying we should just allow sinful policies to be put in place. I'm not saying we shouldn't deal with abortion, we should, right? But for the people who are the loudest against abortion, I would ask them, how many women are you serving, right? Women and children that are outside of the womb than inside.
Once that woman gives birth, and they need a place to stay, can they come and stay at your crib?
Yeah. How many
for a couple of years
are you at the clinic saying, hey, don't do this, let me help you?
Yeah.
Or are you just
I'm
we're against it because it says that it's sinful in the Bible, right? How many times have you sat down with someone of LGBTQ, right? How many people have you actually sat down and talked to and had conversations with them? Are you even a person that people want to have a conversation and sit down with?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? How many people have you given the gospel to that live a gay lifestyle? And so these are the questions that I would ask those individuals. Like, what y'all doing outside of voting, outside of making a Facebook post? What are you doing outside of that? So that's my biggest issue with the groups, right?
I think too, like, I guess a main point I have is no Christian should tell another Christian that they voted in an unchristian way. I think, like, if somebody is anti-abortion and a Christian heard it's to your point, if one candidate has policies that really just help women out, or they they help out a lot of groups of people, and they fail in this area versus the other candidate has that they support that one issue you care about, but they fail in other areas. It's like there's no such thing as a perfect candidate.
Yeah.
Like Christians shouldn't do that. They shouldn't say, well, if you this is our Christian candidate. That's why like a lot of Christians get like side eye casted at them because they say, well, like Trump is our dude, and they're like, really? But then they say you better not vote for Kamala. And then there are things I disagree with Kamala Harris about, but if I were to cast a vote for her, I don't think that makes me any less. That was the Holy Spirit coming out. That would make me any less Christian than someone who voted for Donald Trump.
Yeah, I talked to this lady. She was an older lady. She was 68 years old. She was in one of these community meetings that I was at, and she said the reason why she doesn't vote for Republicans is she said I'm conservative in how I live my life. She loves the Lord. She's active in the community. She's active in her church. She said she doesn't vote for Republicans. She said it's harder to get things done when it comes time to serve people because they're so wrapped up in money. And then she broke down some more things with that, and she gave me some examples. But I was processing. I was like, wow, that's interesting, because she's been like in politics for a long time. She's 68 years old, so she's seen a lot of things.
True.
And so she was just like, yeah, it's harder to get things done, at least here in Illinois, because number one, this is going back to like helping women and all those things. Like a lot of not to say Republicans don't do that, but there's a lot of like Democratic states or cities that prioritize that in a different way than the Republicans do. And so she explained it to me how she explained it, but it was just an example of like, man, like you vote for what's important to you, right? And she's not for abortions. She believes that living a gay lifestyle is a sin. And so, but she knows if I vote Democrat, that's what they're about, and that's what they could be about. I think it's a sin, and I'm following Jesus, but I'm voting because I need these things that I'm prioritizing, that I'm working on. I need those things to get done, and the things that she's trying to do in the community. And she's like, the other side ain't gonna do it. You know what I'm saying? And so it's not a priority to them. So she has her reasons. And so I say that to say, like, yeah, vote. Going back to the phrase that I said, vote your conscience, but don't lose your conscience for a vote. And that's how I would talk about that. The Bible doesn't give us any verses that tell us how we need to vote. Remember, the Bible is a worldwide book, not an American book. And then I'm gonna just share this verse. It's from Joshua. I think Joshua does an amazing job with this verse. I'm gonna pull it up on my phone so I can read it. Adam, what was that verse? I gave it to you. 15, right? 5:15.
Yeah. Or
No, it was 13 through 14. And so this is how I think that we need to approach the Lord, right? When it comes to voting, whether you're here in America or you're anywhere else. And it's Joshua chapter 5, verse 13 to 14. It says, when Joshua was near Jericho, he looked up and saw a man standing in front of him with a drawn sword in his hand. Joshua approached him and asked, are you for us or for our enemies? Neither, he replied. I have now come as commander of the Lord's army. Then Joshua bowed with his face to the ground in homage and asked him, what does my Lord want to say to his servant? I believe that should be our approach. Like, we think Jesus is like wearing a red suit and got a MAGA hat on in heaven. Like, no, cuz like he's like, I ain't choosing no sides. Y'all need to choose me. I ain't for your
That's
side.
good.
I ain't for your side. Y'all need to be for my side and for what I'm standing on, because I'm the commander, right? I'm the Lord. And yeah, I think that should be our approach. But so many people think that he would be Republican if he was here. He would be, he'd be conservative, he'd be a liberal. Like, no, man. Like, Jesus has his standard, and his standard is the standard. And if you don't fall up under that, then
That's good.
It's adios to you.
Yeah, nothing about Jesus really screams I would be nothing about Jesus screams I would join any group. like one, you were like, well, if Jesus was here, he'd be a Republican. Jesus was here, and he was crucified by the government.
Exactly.
It's like it doesn't matter like what the government is. He's not like,
I'm pretty sure the Pharisees was Republicans. If they were here today, they probably would be with the Republicans.
Roman Republicans, dear Lord.
And
No,
that'd be the first.
No. The Pharisees, no, Jewish Republicans, and then the Romans were the Romans would be Democrats.
Yes. The liberals.
Oh yeah, of course, because Romans, pagans.
Yeah. So, and both of them would kill Jesus just as fast.
So yeah,
And
he's not a joiner to me, or I'll say it like this: he wouldn't define himself by a political party, because his allegiance was like not to this world. If anything, I mean, it's cheesy because I heard a bunch of pastors say it, but Jesus, like, he wasn't the donkey, he wasn't the elephant, he's the lamb. So follow the lamb.
And when he come back, he the lion. So
Exactly.
you better, come correct.
No, but see, why you gotta make it hard? I'm just trying to say now he's the lamb, and
Because who the king of the jungle?
Tarzan.
Tarzan.
Lion.
The lion. And so, hey, when you come, you gonna be like, lion, come on this side. Lion, no, it's like, y'all better watch where y'all going.
No, I feel you. Either way, he ain't the donkey or the elephant.
the lion and the lamb.
True.
Yeah,
And I think too, like,
donkeys and elephant.
one thing I just thought of, for people who say like, well, if this issue is just like so big that there's no way I could vote for the person who opposes it. If it is, because a lot of Christians will say abortion, if it is that, there are just as many scriptures about treating widows correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So if one candidate has like policies for treating widows well, but they're pro-abortion, and then the other candidate is anti-abortion, but they have no policies for helping poor and helping widows and stuff like that, do you think you get more grace from God if you vote for the anti-abortion policy, but they neglect the other part? It's like, what's the scripture say? If you offend in one, you offend in all. So they would have to be a perfect candidate. Basically, you're not pleasing. I don't know if you're pleasing God with who you vote for. I think you please God with how you serve people.
Exactly.
So
second greatest commandment.
and that's like throughout the Old Testament, people served like whoever the politician was. It was how they served. It was how Joseph served, even up under people who weren't the best.
Yeah.
Can
we take a minute to let's dive into really quick what is the role of government according to Scripture?
I have no idea.
Have you
I mean, I know about it in terms of like our attitude towards them, but like the role of government, please break it down for me.
I mean, there isn't any clear, right, verses on the role of government. We have what our approach to government should be, and so we can go to Romans. Let's go to Romans 13 really quick. Let's go to Romans 13. Let me pull this up on my phone, Bible app.
Romans 13 or 14?
Let's go to Romans 13. Romans 13 is about.
I was about to say, yeah, there are plenty of verses that deal with
Romans 13. Oh, I didn't give you this verse. This just popped in my head right now. Sorry, Adam. But yeah, depending on your translation, it might title this "A Christian's Duty to the State." And so, it start off right out the bat, verse 1. It says, "Let everyone submit to the governing authorities, since there is no authority except from God, and the authorities that exist are instituted by God. So then, the one who resists the authority is opposing God's command, and those who oppose it will bring judgment on themselves." So, it says, "For rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Do you want to be unafraid of those in authority? Do what is good." Okay, and so, yeah, the beginning verses in this chapter, Romans 13, what is this, 1 through 3, talks about how we are to pretty much respect those in authority. And so, even if we might not necessarily agree with them, right, we need to be respecting them, right? There's another verse that says that we should be praying for those in authority, praying for our leaders, right?
Yeah.
Hebrews 13. Let's go to Hebrews 13. Thank you, Adam. Adam is, I don't know if you're putting these on the screen or not, but we'll see.
Hebrews 13.
Yeah, tell it at the end.
Hebrews 13 says, we like to read the Bible on this podcast and dive into them, you know what I'm saying? We just don't want to give y'all our opinions. But what does the Lord say about these things? It says 17 and 18. Bet. Obey your leaders and submit to them, since they keep watch over your soul. I think this is in church. Yeah, this.
I feel like it still applies.
It's applicable.
Well, I mean, government authorities don't keep watch over your soul. Pastors, right? Leaders of the church do. But I mean, we have to submit, right? Obey the laws of the land. Those things are what we should be doing, right? Our attitude towards government and authority, right? We don't know police officers, if they're Democrat or Republican, if they're good police or if they're corrupt. We don't know. But when they pull us over, we got to pull over, right?
Yeah.
And so we have to submit to those in authority, be respectful. But man, I just praying for them, right? It's so important. Our leaders, world leaders, those who are making decisions on our lives, we should be praying that they use biblical wisdom, and then those who we know are not, let's make sure that we're using biblical wisdom and how we, conduct ourselves. First Timothy 2.
Yep.
Let's go to 1 Timothy chapter 2.
Yep.
1 and 2. All right, instructions on prayer. First of all, then I urge that, hold up. You want to read this one? You got it up or not?
1 Timothy 2, where?
For 1 and 2.
I urge then, first of all, that petitions, prayers, intercession, and thanksgiving be made for all people, for kings and for all those in authority, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness.
So right there, another command to we should be praying, right, for our leaders and those things. You can respond. Let me pull up something on
what I just thought of,
government.
or what I actually believe the Holy Spirit just kind of hipped me to. Yeah, that's an old expression. What he just kind of impressed upon me. Whenever I read that in Romans about submitting to the government, I bristle. And like something in me just kind of gets pricked, because that's cool if you got good officials. And this has been tension in the church. I've seen podcasts on it. I've seen discourse on it, debates. But like when it says like submit to the government and authorities, there's no authorities except that which God has established. Well, is that Jim Crow? Is that Nazism? Is that horrible governments that oppress women, that like where atrocity after atrocity is committed? And I always kind of bristled at that. But then I just thought, and thank you God for this, I'm like, maybe that's misconstrued. The way wives submit to your husbands is misconstrued.
Yeah, because the government might put something in law, like so smoking weed is legal, right?
Yeah,
we ain't gotta smoke weed.
True.
Right? And then if they try to make us do something is sinful, right? Something that's offensive to God, we ain't doing it.
If I get home and I say to my wife, we're gonna start, manufacturing heroin in our bathroom and stuff like that, I would, and then I say, well, babe, wives, submit to your husbands.
Yeah.
If I say we're gonna start like stealing money, or start just doing really atrocious things, no, it's like follow me as I follow Christ. Imitate me as I imitate. So I would not expect. I would hope Marianne would not.
Marianne be on the first thing smoking. She gone.
Literally, not smoking bad stuff, but like
no, like I mean, like the car.
I know, like a car. But like that's no, but that's something that I hope like maybe could give Christians some peace. That God doesn't mean like, I don't think God means it to submit to governments who are doing terrible things. And
I mean, look at China, right?
Yeah.
It's illegal in certain parts of China to be a Christian or to even own a Bible.
And
that's why there is an underground church.
And there's an
there.
underground. So wait, is the underground church not submitting to God then?
No, they're submitting to God by obeying His commandments.
Yeah.
God says that we need to read the Bible, right? That we need to gather, right? Do not forsake the gathering of believers. All these things, and that government is trying to stop them from that. And so we always submit to God above anybody else.
Yeah. So if your government is doing something out of pocket, you're not supposed to follow them.
But if they say, hey, we need all your guns, Christians, right? Give up your guns. It's not a commandment for you to have a gun.
I don't know about that.
All right, well, break it down then.
If the government comes and says give up your guns, I'm like, why?
I mean, you can ask why.
Just like you took it to like.
So are you going to then keep your gun and then go to jail?
I'm like, why are you saying give up your gun? And I don't even have a gun, but I'm just like, that seems a little bit like suspect. I'm like,
it's definitely suspect, right? In America, it's suspect, but there's other countries that have said they've done like bought back gun programs. Their machine guns and certain guns are illegal. Citizens can't have those. Only police and military can have guns. And their mass shooting is like 0, by the way. But I mean, if the government says, hey, guns are illegal, they might change something in the Constitution. I think only us in America love our guns.
True. And I'm not even like a gun nut, but I'm not saying everything the government says do.
Everything said is right.
No,
but if we submitting to, if it says submit to the government, in what ways do we submit? If they tell us to sin, if they say, hey, you guys can't talk about Jesus, you guys can't have church anymore, all the churches are being shut down, you guys can't even meet in your homes, it's illegal, do we stop those things? Those are things that God told us to do. But God didn't tell us to carry, walk around with the 9, with the glizzy, with the Glock on us.
I mean,
Right?
it depends. Jesus was like, if you have a sword, like take 2. After he said, lay down your sword.
Yeah, but that was he was talking. Who he was talking to during that passage?
Disciples.
Yeah, so we get into like hermeneutics and stuff, right? So it's like,
I'm just-
who was he
no,
talking to? Was
but-
that a thing for
if-
them directly, or was it for
But
all of
if you
time?
start splitting hairs, and if you start saying, well, if the government says that you can only wear red from now on, if they say you can only have this type of hairstyle, if I like no, then what are you doing? Is the government just getting petty? I'll say no. Let me bring it back. Let me bring it back to marriage. If I get home and I can say, babe, you can only wear your hair like this. Throw out all your skirts. Like, you know what's funny? Even the Bible says, fathers, don't exasperate your children. Don't place unfair expectations on them. So I can't go home and lord it over RJ. Didn't it say, like, after the fall of man, wives, husbands will lord it over you how much you want to just like love your husbands and be with them and have them a part of you. You remember it said that? And they'll lord it over you. You're not supposed to be a tyrant in your home.
Right.
You're not supposed to be a dictator.
Right.
So I don't think it wouldn't be right for you. Now you can have gun legislation and how you handle your guns and how you handle your property and your land. But as far as you telling somebody what you can and cannot do, because even in God's government, it's like everything is permissible, but not everything. Sex is permissible. Prostitution, like damaging your body. God ain't gonna make you do anything. He's not gonna make you do anything. You can choose to submit to God.
Right.
Right.